welcome to Ponder and Practice, the podcast for professional, high-achieving women who are ready to swap hustle for harmony, exhaustion for energy, and pain for power. I'm Dr. Katherine Hoffman, and I help value-driven, ambitious women achieve their goals by setting artful, integrity-aligned boundaries that create space for meaningful work and sincere connection. So, are you ready to discover the power of no? Well, let's get started. Hey there, friends, and welcome to another episode of Ponder and Practice. I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy to talk to you. I have lists and lists of topics I want to talk about, and I am having so much fun recording them and outlining them and brainstorming, and it seems like there's always something new and a new aspect of this I hadn't considered, and I love it. It's so good. If there's something that you are wanting to hear that you have not heard yet in the context of boundary setting, if there are questions that you have, let me know. Get in touch. If you head on over to artfulboundaries.com/contact, you can drop me a line. My phone number is also there, and you can give me a call or shoot me a text, and I'd love to hear about what you are enjoying on the show, and if there are things that you would like to hear more about. I do this as a service, and I mean, I certainly enjoy it, but it's also as a service to you. So I want to make sure that it is of as much utility as it could possibly be for what it is. So let me know. Get in touch. That's artfulboundaries.com/contact, and you can get in touch with me there. Today I am talking about how to set and keep boundaries for yourself, which is maybe a weird topic. I don't know. I think about this a lot, and it's really the topic of habit change, and intentional habit change, and cultivating habits that are most meaningful for you. The thing I say about interpersonal boundaries is that really all it is creating a space for meaningful interaction. So setting a boundary between you and someone else, or saying, you know what, this isn't really going to work for me. How about this other thing? That's a way that you set up a container so that you can meet the other side in a way where you are fully present, fully focused, and able to provide as much excellence as you possibly can in the context of that interaction. So when we're talking about personal boundaries, things that you do for yourself, it's not that different. The only difference is that you're not interacting with someone else, but you are molding yourself in a really specific way. And so when it comes to setting boundaries for yourself, or setting personal boundaries, it's really about creating a space that allows you to thrive. That's what I'm talking about here. We all have conditions in which we excel, right? If you think about a plant, obviously you're not a plant, I get that. But if you think about a plant, an orchid is going to do vastly different, or is going to thrive in a vastly different environment than will, say, a dahlia. Or a pear tree is going to do well in a very different environment than a mango tree or an avocado tree. So there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing wrong with any of this. It's a simple fact of the matter that you are designed to thrive in some very specific conditions. And so as you're able to figure out what those conditions are, and as you're able to practice boundary setting with yourself, you figure out how you thrive. And then as you figure this out, you get to experience what it's like to be thrilled to be living your life, and to show up in a way that feels really good to you. And that means that when you're in connection with someone else, the fact that you're thriving is going to shine so bright to the people around you and the people that you're in contact with, and it spills over and ripples out. in ways that we can't really even understand with our human perspective, because you only know your perspective, but your ability to create this container for yourself and create an environment in which you can just, do phenomenally well and, like I said, really thrive. It spills out and it ripples out, and it is not nothing, my friend. So that's why I'm talking about this today. And so a word that comes up, habits is one word that comes up with folks when we talk about setting personal boundaries. Another word that comes up is discipline, which can be a very charged word, and I understand that completely. But when I think about setting boundaries for yourself, and when I think about discipline and anchoring these two things together, connecting them together, we're talking about the definition of discipline that has to do with improvement. So it's training yourself in a way that is expected to produce a specific character or pattern of behaviors, especially that produces improvement. This is an abbreviation of the Merriam-Webster definition of discipline, but it's just what I said put a different way, right? So all that you're doing is training yourself to thrive. You're putting the conditions in place so that you can live life in a way that is most meaningful to you. And that's what life is about, right? Like, you don't want to be here living life in a way that's meaningful to someone else. That's not helpful to you. You want to be living your life in a way that you love, a way that you enjoy. And so that's what I'm getting at here. That's what I'm talking about here. And this applies to really any area of your life and every area of your life. And you'll find that as you bring your attention and intention to one aspect of your life, other parts will start to move in some really interesting ways. So you might start with your health, with your work or career, with personal relationships, professional relationships, with your finances. It could be anything. And as you go, different things are going to start to shift. And so this is about habits as well. So let's talk about the specifics of what this looks like, right? So what I said I was going to talk about today is how to set and keep boundaries for yourself. The first thing is to notice what are the emotional cues you're getting when something is off. So for example, I have a goal that I want to be able to get up early in the morning at like 6 a.m. And you can call that a habit, you can call that a personal boundary, whatever. But the point is that I know about myself, when I get up earlier in the day, my day goes very differently than when I get up later at like 7:30 or 8. And so I notice that when I get up, like today I got up at 8 o'clock, I think, and I noticed that I felt cranky and a little bit angry and frustrated and a little bit like resentful of myself and irritated, and just like not in a very good mood, feeling pretty crappy. And so I noticed that, okay, what's that emotion that's coming up? Good to know. I don't have judgment about that. I got to sleep late last night. We can game this out in any number of ways, but the point is that when my behavior is a certain way, that affects my mood in a very specific way. Whereas on the days that I do get up earlier, when I'm up at even 6:30, I feel good. I feel like, oh, I've gotten a jump on the day. I'm on schedule or ahead of time. I feel like I have enough time to take care of myself in the morning. So that's a very different feeling, right? I feel confident, I feel competent, I feel hopeful and joyful and like looking forward to the day. Gratitude comes more easily to me in those moments. So I notice, okay, that's a really big emotional difference. No one else is involved. This is worth paying attention to and noting. When we're talking about boundaries in relationships and creating that container in relationships, there's someone else involved, and that interaction we are guiding and molding in a very specific way. When we're talking about personal boundaries, no one else is involved, right? Like, it's on me what time I get up. It's no one else's responsibility. And so noticing that emotion that you generate and those feelings that you generate based on your behavior gives you such good information. So much good information. Because from there, the next step, after you've noticed what that emotion is, then you can go to the next thing, which is, okay, well, what's the problem here? Sometimes there's not a problem. Sometimes it's just you have an expectation that you're not meeting. Sometimes it's that you see someone else behaving in this way and you have a thought that you should be behaving in that way. And that's just a mindset thing. That's, there's nothing wrong with you, and accepting that, what, I don't operate like that person, and that's fine because I operate the way that I operate, right? So that's one piece. As you notice these emotions coming up, paying attention to what's the problem if there is one, and if there isn't, like, what's the mindset work that needs to be done? What's the expectation that I'm holding that is really not serving me, and letting that go. If that's what's happening, if you can identify that expectation and let it go, you're going to feel lighter. You're going to feel more at ease, and you're not going to have that cranky emotion or that specific emotion that you have when you don't live up to that thing. So for me, in my example, like, if I was seeing someone else get up at 6 a.m. every day, and I was like, oh, well, they're successful, so I should be getting up at 6 a.m. But every day I did my best. Like, I felt really awesome when I got up at like 8:30 or 9. But I was like berating myself and feeling ashamed and like I'm failing because I'm not getting up early. But I like feel physically fine. I feel like I still have time to do everything I want to do. I feel like my rhythm is good. That's a mindset thing. There's nothing wrong with me. That's just is how I work best. It isn't how I work best. And so like I've done this work and figured out like, no, I really do need to be up earlier because for my body, for my physiology and my mental health and spiritual health, like this is what works best. But you kind of can see a little bit of the difference there. So you notice the emotion, you do some exploration and see like, what's the problem here? And maybe there's not a problem there. And then you let go of that expectation and move on and accept that you are phenomenal the way you are, and the way that you do things is awesome, and that's cool. The end. And I make this sound really easy, and I understand it's not always that easy, but that's that piece. Or if there is an issue, then you call out, well, what is the problem here? What's my goal, and how is this behavior not in line with where I'm trying to go? So if I have really big aspirations for myself, like really big, scary big. And we'll see how this goes. And hopefully in 15 years, I'll listen back to this episode and crack up because I have achieved those goals. But I have really big aspirations for myself. And so for me, the question is, are my habits and is my container for my experience day to day, does that support my highest aspirations? Me getting up at 8 o'clock every morning does not support those highest aspirations, because for me, it's, I want to be exercising in the morning before I get to work. I want to do some reflection and creative stuff before I do like my paid work in the day. Having spiritual connection is really important to me. Like there's a whole host of things that are in my values that when I get up late, I don't have that container to thrive. When I get up late, it's like I knocked out a wall of my house and there's snow coming in. It's not good. It's not fun. And so I need to keep that boundary for myself to keep my space safe so that I can operate in a way or in a space that is good for me, right? And you can apply, I'm just using this example of waking up early as one thing. It doesn't have to be that. It can really be anything. And so you can think back and notice like where are the places in your life where you're cranky or irritable, and it's really it's no one's fault, but like there's no one else involved in that feeling necessarily. It's based on your own behaviors. Another place where this comes up in my life, and I see it come up in other people's lives as well, and clients and friends and whatnot, is exercise. Most folks know that they feel better when they exercise. Their bodies feel better, their minds feel better, their emotions are more even. And when they don't, they feel really cranky and upset and just like, ugh, not so good. And so a lot of the work that I do with folks, and for myself as well, is like, okay, well, how do you keep that habit? Like, how do you maintain that space for yourself so that you're creating a container in which you can, in fact, thrive in whatever way that makes the most sense for you? So that's the basics of that. So the first part is observing what's going on. And then the second part is actually setting those boundaries and setting that container. So I probably should have walked through this in a different way, but that's fine. So then it's a matter of figuring out, like, what are the conditions that are necessary for me to have all four walls on my house so that I'm in a space where I can do really well and achieve what I'm wanting to achieve, and show up in the way that my best self shows up. And then it's a strategy game. So for me, in order to get up at 6 a.m., I'm just going to stick with this example, I got to go to bed early. I need to be in bed by like 9 o'clock in order for me to get up at 6 and feel good, right? And not be exhausted throughout the day. I need to make sure I don't drink water super close to bed, because then I'm going to have to wake up a bunch of times and go to the bathroom. And these maybe sound kind of silly, but this is the work of figuring these out and setting this space for yourself. So those are a couple things. You know, for me, I need to put my phone on Do Not Disturb starting at like 7 o'clock at night, because I start to wind down and I need that time and space to come out of my day and transition into, okay, now it's time for rest. Now it's time for rejuvenation. So that's a specific boundary in tech that I set for myself, that I'm not looking at my phone after 7. You know, plugging my phone in a different room. It doesn't go in my bedroom with me. My phone lives in a different space at night. So that's another boundary that I've set for myself to create the conditions. Having an alarm clock, which I don't love, but sometimes I will set. That helps me, like, oh yeah, I gotta wake up. Okay. You know, so once you've figured out where there's a rub and where there's, you know, like, this isn't really working well for me, then you figure out, is it an expectation thing that I really don't jive with? Or is there like actually, like, yeah, I need to do something differently for myself, because these can, like, the soil isn't right for me right now the way things are. I'm not getting like the sunlight and the water and all the conditions that I need to really grow and thrive and do my best. And then what are those things? And let me just say that this is not a one and done thing. A lot of folks think that once you have your, like, quote, behaviors and habits dialed in, they're just set and you're good. And I really want to emphasize, it's negotiable. It's experimental. You try some things out, you see how it goes. Okay, well, that didn't go so well. This thing kind of worked, but this thing kind of didn't work. So then you do something differently. Another example I can give you, we'll come back to exercise, is that, you know, I am training for a marathon in 2021. And so a really big deal for me lately is making sure that I'm moving on a regular basis. And the marathon isn't until next October, but getting into that habit of running on a regular basis and just getting my body used to it. I am not going to thrive in that marathon if I am not moving regularly starting now. Like, I need a lot of time to train my body. And that's something that I know about myself. And so it's an experiment and it's ongoing. I have registered for like 4 marathons at this point and completed none of them. So I'm like, it's got to happen. How do I make this happen? And the reasons I didn't finish any of them before, some had to do with me, some didn't have to do with me, and it just, life happens how it happens. But what are the conditions that, barring any major external event, I'm going to be able to show up on race day and run my ideal race? Like, what needs to happen now in order for that to happen then? And this is a personal boundary that I'm setting for myself. This is a space that I am creating for myself so that I can excel on my terms on that race day. So I have tried running in the morning, which sometimes works really well for me. Not so much lately. So I was thinking today, well, this doesn't seem to be going very well. So what if I move my run to the end of the day, which is not ideal because it gets dark at night very early here. It gets dark at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which is an exaggeration, but not by much. And so I don't love to run in the dark. There's more light in the morning. But what matters most is that I'm getting that movement in, that I'm logging those miles and getting my run in. So it's okay, well, like, it's not working in the morning, so let's just move it. Let's try a different strategy. And so I just share this to share with you, you know, if you try out one thing and it's not working, it's not because you're bad or like you've messed something up in a fundamental way. It just is because it takes time to figure stuff out. And that's okay. Try some stuff. You can brainstorm with a friend, like talk through with them what you're experiencing and what you're struggling with, and like see if they have some thoughts about it. I know a lot of folks hire coaches for this as well. But yeah, it takes time. It's an experiment, and that's totally fine. The take home here, and what I really want you to walk away from this episode with, is that it's okay to set boundaries for yourself and with yourself. It's okay to accept the fact that, you know, maybe the people you most admire, they're more like avocado trees, but you happen to be more like a persimmon. And so that requires a very different set of contextual aspects, right? Like avocados do well not in places that are very cold. Persimmons do fine when it's very cold. They're like the last fruit to come ripe, and you know, that's where they're happy. So it's totally okay, and I really encourage you to take the judgment out of it and really be honest with yourself and with as much care and compassion as you possibly can, but notice what is or isn't working. Like, where are the conditions of my container for my growth like not helping me? Like, where are my walls down? Where do I need to put up some fences? Or like, where am I best held by my own structures? Another word that's often tossed around that relates to this, I think, is systems. I am a systems person. I love a good system. It makes me feel like I know what's up. I know what to expect. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm good to go. So maybe you don't do well with that kind of rigid structure and rigid systems, but invariably there are some things in your own life that are going to help you thrive and excel, and there's some other things that aren't. So the more you can notice them and the more you can pay attention to them, the more you can be intentional about it. And the more you can use those things to your advantage, so that, you know, those beautiful effects of you finding your own joy and you experiencing what it feels like to really thrive, that ripples out into the world. And then we all get to experience it through you. And that's kind of why I do what I do, if I'm being completely honest. All right. So if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and a rating. And then other folks can also find the show and also benefit from it. And that would be so super helpful. And I thank you in advance if you're willing to take a few minutes and do that. Also, if you're interested in getting your hands on some goodies about boundary setting, I have 2 things. One is coming in hot. It will be today as this episode is released. At 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I am presenting a webinar about how to set great boundaries for the healthiest of holidays. This holiday season is coming up so fast, and I mean, Thanksgiving is next week as of the release of this episode, so I don't know how that happened, but it happened, and okay, whatever. But I know that a lot of folks are experiencing anxiety around, they're not really sure how to say no to holiday invitations, they're not sure if they should travel, maybe their expectations around that, and they want to, stay safe and stay home, and that's what makes the most sense for them. So I'm going to be talking through how to navigate those really sticky situations. And I'm also going to be talking through if you're at home and you're at close quarters, how do you maintain these personal boundaries for yourself so that not only can you thrive, but also those really close familial relationships, or maybe if you have roommates and you all are kind of on top of each other, like how do you maintain those relationships in a way that you feel good, you're thriving, and also the other people in your home are doing as best as they possibly can also. So if you want in on that, it is happening tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you head on over to artfulboundaries.com, at the very top of that website, there is a link that says November webinar. It's on the right-hand side as you're looking at the page, right at the top, and you can click on that and it will take you to the page to register for the webinar. And then the other thing, I have so many goodies for you and I love it. If you go to ponderandpractice.com/boundaries, you can get access to the last webinar I did, which was all about, how to build better boundaries, mostly in a professional setting. And you can also get access to the, I have like a 5-step guide for how to set good boundaries. And then also I have a little workbook that I put together, which is pretty cool. And it's called How to Build Better Boundaries. So, you can get all of those things over at ponderandpractice.com/boundaries. Yeah. All right, my friend, take good care, hang in there, take good care of yourself. And I encourage you to have as much compassion and grace for yourself as you possibly can. It's all an experiment. It's all an experience and a process. And honestly, it's all good. There's nothing that you could be doing that's outside of the realm of what it means to be human. And, it's all good. You're doing everything right. You're doing your very best, and that's all that you could possibly do. So, until next time, take care.